What's up, guys? I have another pen video for you today, and today I am going to be talking about the TWSBI Mini. For those of you who don't know, TWSBI is a Taiwanese pen company who recently, in the past few years, started making their own pens, mainly out of, I believe, polycarbonate plastic. There have been issues where certain lines of the TWSBI pens have been cracking and everything. I haven't had cracking issues with the Mini yet or my VAC 700, so I've been lucky so far. And if they do crack, they have great customer service. You can always email them; they'll send you replacement parts, no questions asked. I've done 2 TWSBI videos in the past, I believe. One on a TWSBI 540 and one on the TWSBI VAC 700. Even after getting those 2 pens, I decided to get a Mini anyway, just because I wanted a smaller size fountain pen, and that's, in this case, I got this in fine, in the classic look, where it has the clear demonstrator barrel with the black cap and the black piston and black section. And I wanted to get this as a pocket fountain pen to basically carry with me as an everyday carry pen. If you want to compare to most other size pens, here I have a Pelican M600. You can see that it's a little bit shorter, and the widths aren't that much more different, but it's mainly the length. I know a lot of people like the Mini because they fit in shirt pockets a little better. Certain breast shirt pockets. With a longer pen, they may not sit properly, and when you get the clip, they may clip a little higher. With the Mini, you shouldn't really have any pockets that this can't fully seat into when it's clipped to the edge of the pocket. And years ago, this was my pocket fountain pen. This is a Kaweco Sport, and it's a very nice pen. It's very affordable. I believe you get them for around $25. They're steel nibs. They're good sized, like in terms of, you see a lot of the barrel actually gets capped in, and even then, like this pen, this Sport, is still shorter than the Mini, so it makes for a great pocket fountain pen. The only problem with these pens is that they're only cartridge pens. There are no converters made for this particular pen. I believe they recently came out with like a vacuum sac filler, but they're not widely available yet, and from what I've heard in terms of reviews, they don't work that well. Like, you can't really get more than like half a fill in that sack, so you might as well just go ahead and you get better ink capacity just using one of these mini cartridges. And in my case, I have one cartridge that I just constantly refill with an ink syringe, and it's nice, it's okay, it works, but it's hard to kind of beat the convenience of, most my inks are all bottles. I don't have cartridges laying around, so it's hard to beat the convenience of a piston filled pen. But because there's a piston mechanism in here, it is obviously much longer than the Kaweco Sport. This pen size is actually pretty good. With my hand size, I can actually write with this unposted if I wanted to. It's not like it's actually resting into my hands at this point. It is very lightweight though, because of how small it is without the cap, so I do kind of like to post it. With the Mini, there are threads here for you to screw the cap onto when you post, like so. This makes it more comfortable of a length to write with, but the only problem is this becomes a little more back heavy than I would like. This isn't a pen that I would write with like extended period of times for, so it's not that big of a deal. The section is a little narrower than pens like the M600, so, but for short writing stints, I have no problems with it. And what this pen is made, like I bought this pen for, is for shorter writing periods. I have if you watched before, I don't know what order I'm going to post them, but I just did my video for my M600. One disappointing thing about this pen is that it probably dried a little bit. I have Noodler's 54th Massachusetts in here, and it tends to dry on the nib, and I haven't written with this pen in a few weeks, so it's actually not that bad. There is like an O-ring here, but it doesn't seal it completely all the time, and depending on how tight you screw it down, so it does dry out. But in terms of wetness, it kind of writes middle of the road. It's not super wet, it's not super dry. If you can actually see from here, it doesn't write as nearly as wet as like the M600. You could just tell by the color of the ink coming out that it's just not as dark. One disappointing thing I got about this was the nib, when I got it, super scratchy. I got an extra fine nib, actually. I think I said I got a fine nib before. That was my mistake. I actually got an extra fine nib, and it was just super scratchy. And I and it's still disappointing because a lot of people in their reviews, they say, oh, the Mini like writes buttery smooth and whatnot. So far I haven't really had a TWSBI pen write buttery smooth out of box. And when I contacted TWSBI about it, I got a response back from Speedy, and he said, oh, there's probably a break-in period required, etc., etc. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll write with the pen for a few weeks, and I'll get back to you and see if it improves. And then, like 2 days down the line, I was writing with it. I was like, I'm just getting tired of this scratchiness. The nib section, I'm just gonna try and smooth it out myself, and if I screw it up, then I just pay $25 for another nib and section. It's not the biggest expense in the world. I went ahead and I used my knife sharpening stuff. I used my Spyderco ceramics to smooth this out, and now it actually writes super smooth. It's actually one of the smoothest pens that I own. I think the only pen that writes smoother than this pen is my Pilot Custom 74. Ah, still writing dry. The problem is, like, because the nib is so fine, any ink on there will just dry out really quickly. And it's also one thing, it also has to do with the ink itself. The ink just kind of has an issue with drying out on nibs, which there's a perfect reason why you shouldn't leave your pens that you don't use for a while inked up, because it'll tend to dry it out. And because there's no ink, you can actually hear it scratching on the paper. But after I went ahead and smoothed it out, it writes super smooth now. It writes really well. And, it was the pen that I carried for quite a period of time, until I decided, you know what, this isn't going to be a safe queen. I'm going to use my M600, and this has become my favorite pen, and it kind of brought this out of favor, I suppose. Like I said before, I haven't had any cracking issues with this yet, so the build quality, it has definitely improved over the Diamond 540. I actually sold my 540 to a friend of mine, and he actually ended up having cracking issues, so there's that. But I had already told him that that line of pens had a history of cracking, and that's why they were being sold on clearance. And I gave him a really good price on that pen that was basically new anyway, so he couldn't really complain. In terms of some size comparisons, I guess I compare it with a few different size pens that I have. I already compared it with the Kaweco Sport. Here's a M600. Oh, the VAC 700, which is, a huge pen. And let's get two more pens out here. You can kind of see, like, the typical size and range of pens that I like to carry is like towards the medium size. But let me try and get them kind of lined up at the tail cap, so you can see the size differences. So there you go. It's not the smallest pen in the world, but it's definitely a little bit, quite a bit shorter than, these three pens, which I would consider my standard go-to size pens, and, definitely a lot shorter than the VAC 700. And also a lot narrower as well. The VAC 700 does get quite thick towards where the section meets the barrel of the body. In terms of recommending this pen or not, it's not really a pen I would recommend for someone to get as a standalone pen. If you're new to fountain pens and you want to get like a first pen, this isn't a good size, because I just feel like writing with for an extended period of time with this size pen, your hands will cramp up and it'll be uncomfortable. And because of the potential cracking issues, and the fact that I've gotten 3 TWSBI nibs, and one was okay, but it was like a medium, and even then that had like hard start issues. But these two pens were fine, and they wrote a little bit on the dry side for me, for my taste. And this scratches a little bit, but I can work with it. This was just too scratchy, and I just could not stand it anymore. I definitely can't recommend these as like first time buyer pens, But if you're really, really into fountain pens and you want to kind of like build up a collection, then the TWSBI pens are definitely great, because for their money, you actually get a decent pen with some issues for sub $100. And like I said before, if you go ahead and get a M580 now, no, not an M580, that's Pelican. If you get a Diamond 580 now, it's much larger. I believe the 580 is like a Pelican M800 size pen. It'll be much more comfortable to write with. It's actually the same price as the Mini, and so far from what I've seen, the 580 doesn't have the cracking issues that the 540 and the 530 have had in the past. So that's definitely what I would recommend. But just for a beginner fountain pen user, I wouldn't even recommend the TWSBI pens, just because of the problems. You're gonna have to deal with their customer service more than likely, and as good as the customer service is, it's still more of a hassle than you should really want to have to deal with as a beginner. And even with this pen, I kind of have some buyer's remorse, because yeah, I said I wanted a mini pen for everyday carry. But in all honesty, I found myself actually carrying both of these pens and carrying 2 pens in my pocket anyway. So if you could just go ahead and what I'm doing now is I just pick one pen that I like as my everyday writing pen. I just carry I carry this pen with me every day, and I don't even use this anymore. So I'll probably end up selling it. I'll probably flush it out and keep it in my pen collection. So there's my review of the Mini. Kind of a little disorganized, but essentially, for the money, it's not bad. $50. I do wish it was a little cheaper, but it's in that price range of pens where it's like very tempting to buy if you're into the hobby. But it's definitely not the best performing pen. And I mean, in all honesty, like, instead of getting a TWSBI pen, I think you're probably better off just investing like $40 more, $30 more, almost like 2 times the price, and you get something that writes really well, like a custom 74, or from Japan. Or if you're lucky, you can find on the secondary markets, you can find Lamy M2. Well, I keep on saying M's. You can find Lamy 2000s for like around $100, $120, and both these pens are definitely, they write well above what any of the TWSBI pens I've owned can write, and it's not necessarily because of the gold nib. It's just better quality control, and the fact that both these companies, they have in-house made nibs, I believe, versus TWSBI, who outsources their nib from Bach or Joe now, probably. I'm not exactly sure where they're getting their nibs from, but they're not in-house made nibs, so they're the standard steel nibs that you would actually find with a lot of pen manufacturers in the sub $100 category. So yeah, here's another last minute size comparison. That's the thing I would recommend the Mini best for. If you want a pen that can fit easily into your pocket as an everyday carry pen, that is piston filled as well, then get the Mini. Otherwise, I would stick with a larger size pen just for comfort of writing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.